Hello, and welcome to Scaryside. Strange creature spotted in the road. It was Halloween of 2018. My wife and I were driving home late at night. It was around 2:30 a.m. and we were leaving from our friend's party. Every year, our friends build a gigantic haunted pathway in the woods behind their property. It was a successful year with plenty of people involved. Once we enjoyed the after party and the after party cleanup, we were absolutely spent. Nothing seemed better than going to our own home and getting into our nice warm bed. The only issue was, we lived about an hour or so away in the city. We said our goodbyes, packed up the car, and began heading out onto the road. The beginning of the ride home was rather quiet. My wife was staring out of her window into the darkness. She had a few drinks and was practically falling asleep. I was a designated driver that night. I had no choice but to stay alert. There are lots of deer and other wildlife in the area that like to dart out into the middle of the road out of nowhere. I made sure to stay a little below the speed limit, as there are a lot of curves, sudden bends, and hidden spots due to the heavily wooded terrain, at least until we reached the highway. Not many people were out at that time of night, so I was able to drive with my high beams on pretty much the entire time on those old, dark country roads. About 15 minutes into our drive, my headlights caught something reflective. It was a pair of big round eyes in the distance. They disappeared briefly, then back up towards me again. It had dawned on me that I had never seen such large eyes reflecting so much light before. It put me in the mind of someone holding two flashlights directly at me. It was unusually bright. They were much larger than the eyes of a deer, or even a bear for that matter. At first I thought, maybe it was an owl. It seemed to be eating whatever roadkill was lying on the ground. But as it lifted its head, it moved in such a way that I just can't explain. It was almost mechanical in its movements. It had a small round head, two very large eyes, and a small protruding snout. To say the least, it definitely was not an owl once I saw it closer. We live in southwestern Pennsylvania. I've lived here my entire life, and I'm pretty familiar with the wildlife around here. There is nothing that comes close to the description I just mentioned. But that isn't even the strangest part. What really shook me to my core was when I saw its arm. It didn't bend inward like that of a normal animal. It bent outward. It then rotated its long arm up over its shoulder. The best way to explain it was that it reminded me of a huge spider leg. A large, brown, fuzzy spider leg. I could not believe what I was seeing. As I slowed my speed down to get a closer look at this thing, it looked up towards my vehicle and right at me. Instead of scurrying away in fear like a normal animal typically does, it lunged towards my vehicle. We were still a pretty fair distance away, too far for it to have actually hit the car or do any damage, but nevertheless, I sped up in a panic. When it jumped towards our car, I gasped so loudly that it startled my wife. She asked what was wrong, and I didn't know how to respond without sounding insane. I just kept driving. This, of course, sparked my wife's curiosity, and she immediately began nagging me about what I had seen. I said to her, I can't really explain it, but if you're not going to let up on this, I can turn the car around and go back so you can see for yourself." She hesitantly agreed. In that moment, I thought to myself, maybe it was just a badly injured animal that had survived getting hit by a car and was mangled. I surely didn't want to see that either, and I know my wife wouldn't. Against my better judgment, I continued heading back towards the site. It had taken several minutes to return back to that area where I saw this strange creature. During that time, I explained the best way I could to my wife about what I saw. Thankfully, she's open-minded, and it fascinated her more than ever. Upon arrival, I could feel my body tense up. My wife, with her hands clenching the door handle tightly, I slowly pulled up to where the roadkill was. To my bittersweet disappointment, it was gone. The only thing left was the half-eaten carcass the creature had been feasting on only a few short moments earlier. He says to this day he has no idea what he saw. He just knows it was an animal he's never seen before in his life. He's tried to do his own research on strange local animals, and nothing came up. He said his wife briefly found something online about very large spider-type animals with monkey heads, but has since not been able to locate it again. If anyone has ever witnessed something like this before, they and we would love to hear about it. Please comment or email us at scarysidetales@gmail.com.